Good day, my fellow Americans, and welcome to my second installment of my new podcast, The Honor Hour. In this podcast, just to rehash on what I spoke about in my last episode, I'll be going through the recipients of the Medal of Honor, their lives, and the stories that earned them the most valuable military award. In my last episode, I covered the general history of the prestigious award and some fun facts regarding it. However, today I'm going to be touching on the first three recipients: the first recipient in the Army, the first recipient in the Navy, and the first recipient in the Marines. Regarding these heroes, there's not a lot of personal information regarding their lives outside of their military careers. To fill that gap, I'll be diving into some of the context surrounding their military missions. The first recipient of the Medal of Honor was Jacob Parrott, who earned his award serving for the U.S. Army in 1863. He was born July 17, 1843 in Fairfield County, Ohio, where before and after the war, he worked as a cabinet maker and operator of a stone quarry. Parrott served in Company K in the 33rd Ohio Infantry Division. He first saw combat at the Battle of Ivy Mountain in eastern Kentucky. During this time, early in the Civil War, Kentucky was vital because they were split between Confederate state and Union state and had not chosen a side. The Battle of Ivy Mountain proved important in preventing Confederate buildup in Kentucky. This state was also important because the Ohio River ran through it and there were vital railway lines in the new state. It tried to be neutral, but both sides wanted it, and it caused early conflict in the war. While Kentucky never officially seceded, it held lots of pro-slavery sentiment. However, the mission in which Jacob Parrott earned his Medal of Honor took place in Atlanta, where he was given orders to penetrate deep into enemy territory with 24 men to destroy Confederate infrastructure, particularly bridges and tracks, to disrupt the supply line between Chattanooga and Atlanta. His mission began in Atlanta, where he went undercover and hopped on a Confederate train headed north. The train proceeded to stop at Big Shanty, also in Georgia, and everyone hopped off for breakfast and a stretch. It was there at the junction in Big Shanty where the Union soldiers, Parrott included, uncoupled the fuel car, engine car, and 3 boxcars from the rest of the train and took off down the line. They were able to create some distance and destroy a few bridges, but the Confederates had another train hot on their tail. They arrived at the Tennessee-Georgia border, but ran out of fuel. They proceeded to escape on foot and even made it for a few days, but were later captured. They were held prisoner for over a year, but were returned to Union forces after a prisoner exchange. Despite his actions taking place more than a year earlier, Parrott was the first one to be awarded the Medal of Honor in March 1863. However, shortly after, the same award was given to 5 of his comrades who contributed on the same mission. Parrott continued to live a long and healthy life, when later died on December 22, 1908. Our next hero is Robert Williams, who was the first member of the Navy to be awarded the Medal of Honor. He was born in 1837 in New York City and served as the signal quartermaster on the USS Benton, an ironclad river gunboat. Ironclad gunboats made their first ever appearance during the Civil War and were revolutionary for their time. Prior to the introduction of these naval vessels, naval ships were made out of wood. However, these were made out of completely iron. The first battle that introduced these revolutionary naval vessels happened at the Battle of Hampton Roads from March 8th to March 9th in 1862. The CSS Virginia, originally the USS Merrimack but was repossessed by the Confederacy, saw the USS Monitor. This event took place off the Sewell Point in Norfolk, Virginia. During this naval engagement, the USS Virginia made its first appearance, destroying 2 Union wooden ships, but then the Monitor arrived. The battle lasted for a day, but ended in a draw between the two because no one could penetrate each other's armor with the cannons at the time. Now that we have a brief history on the introduction of ironclad river gunboats, we'll jump into the story of Robert Williams and the USS Benton. His heroic actions occurred between December 23rd and December 27th in 1862. This was all part of the Yazoo River Expedition, which was a part of the Vicksburg Campaign. The Vicksburg Campaign aimed to cut the Confederacy in half and destroy supply lines along the Mississippi River. General Ulysses S. Grant, head of the Western Union Army, thought the Yazoo Pass was a good way to flank the enemy. On December 27th, Williams was at Drumgold's Bluff, a heavily fortified Confederate position north of Vicksburg. It was there the enemy had the USS Benton range locked, but Williams stayed poised and was able to tactically retreat, saving the lives of many men. For these actions, he was awarded the Medal of Honor on May 15, 1863. Our third and final recipient is John Mackey, who was the first Marine to be awarded the Medal of Honor. He was born October 1st, 1835, in New York City. During the time of his actions, he was a corporal, but would later be promoted to orderly sergeant. He served on the USS Galena at the attack on Fort Darling at Drury's Bluff on the James River. His heroic actions took place on May 15, 1862. This event took place during the Peninsula Campaign, the Union attempt to take Richmond by moving up the York and James Rivers. This campaign entailed a series of battles where the Confederates used a series of strategic retreats and got all the way backed up to Malvern Hill, but were able to hold Union forces from taking the Confederate capital. While the Boys in Blue ended up winning at the Battle of Malvern Hill, they had to tactically retreat. After intense fighting for 2 months, the general thought it would be best to pull back, reorganize, and resupply, but it put a sudden end to the Peninsula Campaign. At Drury's Bluff, the USS Galena and the previously mentioned USS Monitor, both ironclad gunboats, were blocked by river obstructions and pushed back by heavy artillery fire from Fort Darling. Mackey maintained musket fire on enemy rifle pits, but his fellow soldiers, who were manning the bigger guns, became wounded or killed in action. He was able to fill the position and was able to perform with courage, skill, and precision. He was later awarded the Medal of Honor on July 10, 1863 for these actions. He, as well, lived a long and healthy life and died on June 18, 1910. While I know this episode is on the shorter side again, there's just not a lot of information regarding their lives or detailed accounts of their actions. In future episodes, I'll be staying away from the Civil War because, as I mentioned, nearly 40% of Medal of Honors were issued during this conflict, and kind of focusing on more toward detailed accounts of what happened in World War I, II, Vietnam, and so on. Thank you for listening, and we hope to see you again next episode.